Timing is everything. For example, it's the NBA playoffs at the time that I'm recording this review. That's a time where success or failure can be defined by something as simple as an injury or an illness to a major player. Other times of the year, that won't matter so much. Likewise, the success or failure of any newly released product can depend a lot on its timing. That and the amount of marketing and publicity it receives. Admittedly, the headphone that I'm talking about today, the Sendy Aiva 2, has been around for a little while. Released a bit earlier in 2025, the Aiva 2 is a $599 open-back planar magnetic headphone. If that price and that description rings some bells, it's because at the time I'm recording this, everybody is talking about the Fosi Audio i5s, and they're also a $599 open-back planar magnetic headphone, although the pricing is a little bit hard to gauge because it's currently on a Kickstarter campaign. The fact that they're in a Kickstarter campaign means that at the time I'm recording this, you can essentially pre-order the i5s for less money, and it does, as I said, make it a little bit difficult to know exactly where they're going to land in their final retail price, but it's going to be pretty close to these. And so you might be looking at buying the Fosi Audio i5s as part of the Kickstarter to save some money, but you'll have to wait for them. Alternatively, if you like the sound of what I say about the Aiva 2s, you can buy them right now on somewhere like Amazon. You'll have to spend a bit more than the Kickstarter price of the i5s, but you'll get them straight away. And so that obviously leads to the question of, should you wait and pay a bit less, or should you buy the Aiva 2s? This isn't an Aiva 2 versus Fosi Audio i5 video as such, but we will come back around to a comparison of these two shortly because they're obvious competitors. Before we get there, let's talk about the Aiva 2s just on their own merits. This video is sponsored by Deconi Audio, makers of headphone pads, ear tips, a fantastic modular cable system, and even things like headphone carry cases. Visit deconiaudio.com and use the code PassionForSound10 for 10% off any purchases of all their range of products. The Aiva 2s are beautifully made, as always with any Sendy brand headphone. The ear cups are made of genuine zebra wood, they're beautifully finished, beautifully machined, and the overall finish, I think, is very nicely understated. They're also a pretty compact design, and they're fairly light and very comfortable. The contoured pads fit really nicely on the head, and because of this fabric surface where the headphones touch your skin, they never get too hot in warmer climates. Included with the Aiva 2s are a nice carry case, as usual from Sendy, and also a nice cable, again, as always from Sendy Audio. It's a 4.4mm termination at the amplifier end, 3.5mm terminations going into the earphones, and the headphones also come with an adapter to go from the 4.4mm down to I think it's a 3.5 with a 6.3mm adapter. I haven't checked. The point is, you've got the adapters to make this work with single-ended or balanced amplifiers. On the inside of the headphones, they've got a brand new driver apparently, and that's a planar magnetic driver using a 1 micrometer thick diaphragm. In case you're not familiar with that term, 1 micrometer of thickness means the diaphragm is just 0.001 millimeters thick, if you can imagine such a thing. The specifications of the drivers are that they've got a 32 ohm impedance and a sensitivity of 96 decibels per milliwatt. All of that translates to a headphone that is very easy to drive. You could break your ears with these, and please don't, but you could break your ears with these with just 25 milliwatts of power going into them. That doesn't mean you can't have an amplifier that's got more than 25 milliwatts at 32 ohms, just that you won't need to turn the volume up very far. In fact, good luck finding a headphone amplifier with less than 25 milliwatts because they don't really exist. And that comes back to the point that you can drive the Aiva 2s from anything. And then if you do plug the Aiva 2s into a nice quality headphone amp, the sound that emanates from them is lovely. Sendy headphones are often quite different from the competition in terms of their tuning, and that makes them more interesting to me. The Aiva 2s fit that bill. They're not a weird tuning as such, but they don't follow the audiophile trend into having excess treble emphasis. Instead, they deliver a sound that is pretty much always enjoyable, but not lacking in any technical prowess. I'd describe their sound as being a little bit richer than what you're probably used to if you're familiar with the HiFiMan headphones, and they place more emphasis into the mid-range and a little bit less into the treble, which to me is a good thing. Very importantly, the treble isn't lacking. There's actually some nice sparkle up top, there's a little bit of high treble emphasis to keep them lively and crisp, but the overall tuning doesn't emphasize the treble. Their soundstage is quite well sized, but I wouldn't describe it as massive. They do present quite a good sense of space, and nothing ever feels congested from them. To better explain them though, let's get some context. Comparing the Aiva 2 with their nearest HiFiMan competitor meant that the Ananda Nano's got a run here. The Nanos have that brighter tuning that I mentioned a minute ago, and so they've got less mid-range emphasis and lots more treble emphasis compared to the Aiva 2. That means that the Nanos will deliver more sense of texture and detail in the upper registers, so the upper end of vocals and up into the treble. And so in contrast, the Aiva 2s do come across being a little bit less crisp and clear by comparison. Before you think that makes the Aiva 2s worse, it's actually a better listen to my ears. The slight sense of richness from the Aiva 2s had me relaxing more into the music. The Nanos are probably the better choice if you want the technical resolution side of things to be more emphasized, but if you're just looking for an enjoyable, relaxing and musical experience, I think the Aiva 2s could be the better choice for a lot of people. That said, the Nano's crisper and brighter tuning does make them sound more open. They're probably also better, that being the Nanos, for orchestral style music, because they bring that little bit of extra sense of texture to the strings. They also separate things a bit more by having a larger overall soundstage. And so for classical music listening, I probably would reach for the Nanos. For pretty much everything else, I'd be reaching for the Aiva 2s. I just find them more sonically comfortable and more physically comfortable as well. Of course, if you've already seen my Fosi Audio i5 review, you'll know that I have huge respect for the HiFiMan Ananda Nanos. So it's not to say that I think they're a bad headphone or that the Aiva 2s are absolutely better in all ways, but I think the Aiva 2s are absolutely competing on even playing ground with the Ananda Nanos, and it's going to come down then to preferences. Likewise, when I compared the Ananda Nanos and the Fosi Audio i5s, it was the i5s that I slightly preferred there as well. It probably comes as no surprise then that comparing the Aiva 2s and the Fosi Audio i5s was a bit more of a close comparison than with the Ananda Nanos. These both have a similar sense of weight and body in their sound, that being the i5s and the Aiva 2s. The i5s are a little bit crisper up top though, and then at the other end, it's the Aiva 2s with a bit more oomph. You feel the bass more from the Aiva 2. While the graphs suggest that the i5s actually have more bass up until they drop away below about 80 Hz, the listening experience when you go between both headphones doesn't quite match the graphs. And that's likely for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the Aiva 2s stretch all the way down to 20 Hz with no drop off at all. Secondly, the less crispy treble from the Aiva 2s mean that you can more comfortably listen to it just a little bit louder, and that's going to bring the bass level up as well. You also don't have the treble competing with the bass, and so you do get to experience more of the bass from the Aiva 2s, and that means they're delivering a better sense of bass feel. One area where the Fosi Audio headphones have a clear edge is the sense of soundstage size and space. That's a strength of the Fosis. And again, the Aiva 2s don't sound congested, but the Fosi Audio i5 is clearly more spacious. Sounds are better separated within the i5 soundstage, and they create a more three-dimensional sound presentation overall. Again, that's not to say the Aiva 2s are two-dimensional and flat like some headphones can be, but they don't have the sense of spaciousness that the i5s do. The Aiva 2s are not congested, but they're not spacious. As for which of those two headphones I think is better, that's a really tough one. I like the comfort of the Aiva 2 just a little bit more thanks to their more compact design, and I also really enjoy their slightly more laid-back tuning. Pretty much everything sounds great on the Aiva 2 and from every sort of device. Some source chains and some tracks can be a little bit more bitey if we're talking about the i5s. On the other hand, the i5s can deliver a slightly more engaging and exciting presentation of the music. And that's largely due to their staging presentation, the way they spread the soundstage out and position each sound within that space. Just don't ask the Fosis to do any deep bass because they're physically unable to. And so, you know what? I'm going to sit on the fence on this one. These are both awesome headphones. As I said earlier, timing and marketing and publicity are everything. Everyone is talking about the Fosi audios right now because they're brand new, and they're a little bit mysterious because you have to wait for them to arrive after going through the Kickstarter process. In the meantime, the Aiva 2s are out there, ready to buy straight away, and I think they deserve a listen. They just haven't had the benefit of all the discussion and the hype that the Fosi audios have. And so hopefully this video has got you considering an audition of the Aiva 2s if at all possible, because I do think they're worth a listen, and I think a lot of you are really going to enjoy them. Of course, links are in the description as always to make it easier for you, and if you're on the fence like I am about these two, and you missed my review of the Fosi Audio i5s or you want to watch it again, I've pinned it here at the end so you can check that one out next. For now, a huge thanks to YouTube channel members, also to channel Patreon members, and to those of you who leave super thanks on videos like this one. And until next time, happy listening, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here again soon on Passion for Sound.